It was Miss Lucretia, one of old master's daughters. She held a letter in her hand. "Go and wash," she said, "and be sure to scrub off all that dirt. My husband's brother has written from Baltimore. He needs a servant to take care of his little boy. I figure you're about 8 now, plenty old enough to take some responsibility, so we have decided to send you." Frederick spent the next 3 days in the creek scrubbing himself all over. He was leaving Big House Farm. He was leaving Big House Farm. Many years later, Frederick Douglass wrote, "Those were 3 of the happiest days of my life." Frederick rode off to Baltimore. He looked back only once. Then he faced forward. Forward to what? He didn't know. He didn't care either. Whatever lay ahead, it just had to be better than Big House Farm. And it was. From the beginning, Frederick felt at home in Baltimore. He liked its busy, bustling city ways. But most of all, he liked the Aulds, the family he had been sent to serve. They gave him food and clothes and a warm bed to sleep in. And they gave him one thing, kindness. Frederick's days were busy with work. He ran errands for Master Hugh Auld. He helped Miss Sophia, as the master's wife was called, around the house. And he watched over little Tommy, their son. The evenings were best of all. Often Master Hugh had to go on business. Then Miss Sophia took a book and read aloud to Frederick. Frederick loved the sound of her voice. Sometimes he leaned over and looked at the book in her lap. Those strange marks on the pages were words. Frederick knew that. But what did they mean? Finally, he could stand it no longer. "Miss Sophia, I want to read," Frederick burst out one evening. "Please teach me to read for myself." Miss Sophia thought it was a fine idea. Lessons began the next day. Frederick was a fast learner. Before the first week was over, he knew all the letters of the alphabet. Then Miss Sophia began to teach him short words. She was very pleased with her pupil. "He's so quick," she said to her husband one evening. Miss Sophia expected her husband to be pleased too, but he was not. "What have you done?" he cried. "You must stop at once." Why was he so angry? Miss Sophia didn't understand. Her husband explained. His voice was so loud that Frederick, who was in the back of the house, heard. He crept closer to the door to listen. "Are you out of your mind? Don't you know it's against the law to teach a slave to read and write?" "Why?" Miss Sophia asked. "He'll get ideas out of books. He'll begin to think." Miss Sophia still didn't understand. "What's wrong with that?" she asked. "Don't you see?" her husband said. "Then he will be unhappy with his life as a slave. Why, he might even find out a way to get free." Miss Sophia was not sure she agreed with her husband, but she was a good wife. She said she would stop giving Frederick lessons. Finally, Frederick crept back to bed, but not to sleep. Not that night. His heart was hammering too hard. His mind was exploding with thoughts. So, books were bad for a slave. Learning would help set him free. Miss Sophia had taught Frederick the letters of the alphabet and his first small words. But Frederick knew that Master Hugh had taught him a much bigger lesson that night. Learning would help set him free. He had no pencils or pens or papers or books. He didn't even have a teacher anymore. "But I will learn to read and write," Frederick whispered fiercely, "somehow."